Welcome to Middle Age Phaeacia, Island of the Dark Ships Builders. Phaeacia is such a cool nation and has some pretty unique things going on. Whether they are actually benefits or detriments can kind of depend on the map that you roll up. But either way, it's nice to see some unique mechanics, some cool events, and some really synergistic things going on in this nation. Let's take a look and see what's going on here. Phaeacia is an island queendom of dark-skinned men of great stature, the Colossi. Their fabled dark ships traverse the seas without oars or captains. Once a colony of Baratos, the island flourished and became rich and influential, known for its traders, craftsmen, and marvelous shipwrights. When Baratos was destroyed by the armies of Arcocephalae, the island of Phaeacia was able to stave off the conquerors thanks to ample tributes and its remote location. The queendom has since grown in power and influence. Their traders and explorers have traveled to the far reaches of the world and brought one of the world's greatest marvels back to Phaeacia, a sapling of the golden tree of the blessed gardens of Hesperides. Now, most inhabitants of Phaeacia live unnaturally long and blissful lives, detached from the strife of the world beyond their island. Phaeacia is also home to the giant descendants of Makone. When the giants' feudal war upon the gods came to a disastrous end, the Gigantes that did not join the armies of the God Slayer fled to Black Corkia, an inhospitable island on the Phaeacian archipelago. The king of the Gigantes married the Colossi queen of Phaeacia, and their daughters have ruled the island ever since. Most nobles of the island trace a legacy to the Bertian Colossi as well as the Gigantes of Makone. There are also a few pure-blooded Gigantes remaining on Black Kyrkia. Upholding the old bargain, they arrive each spring to pledge the queen their allegiance. They are not cursed as the flagrant kin and retain some of their former glory. As you can see, we got a lot going on here. Again, a nation that is made up of survivors, just like with Baratos was survivors of a previous age. Same here. We have survived the conquest of Arcocephalae and taken in some of the refugees from Mercone after their war on the gods fell apart. Pretty interesting, a good mix. We have basically the humans of Baratos. We have the Colossi. Remember, the Colossi are related to the traitor queen Colossi that fled from Oaxaca in the early age. And we have some Gigantes from Makone. So quite a little mixed group here. For national features, we are human and Colossi. We start on an extra rich island if possible. We'll come back to that. Ocean sailing, trace income across the oceans, income bonus in coastal castles, prefers heat scales of +1. So a lot going on here on the map. If your map has an island province, you will probably start on it if at all possible. If you do, you get an extra site. We'll look at that when we get 2 sites. That makes it much more viable than it otherwise would be, being surrounded by water provinces. We do not have the ability to pull resources up out of the ocean, and I don't believe we have the ability to build underwater forts. So it's really important that if you get that island start, that is the case. We can trace income across oceans. That means as long as you have a coast on the same ocean as your capital or another castle, you can pull the income from that. For most nations, you need to have contiguous land connections to a fort to be able to pull in income. So that's pretty darn powerful, and it makes it kind of a fun expansion because you can kind of like sail out in different directions and kind of have these little like coastal colonies that you're starting all over the place rather than just swelling out from your capital over land like pretty much every other nation needs to. Maybe some flyers can get away without that. For our military, we are human and Colossi infantry. We don't have any cavalry or anything too crazy. We can recruit special mages in coastal forts, and every year we get an event where we get a few Gigantes. For magic, we are very good in air and water. We have a little bit of astral, glamour, and some earth. Decent pathing here. We're pretty good at what we do. It's not bad. We do have some spells that sure wish we had a little bit more nature and fire. So a little sad on that, but the addition of glamour is nice for this nation. For priests, they are few and We have a couple of medium power. I believe you are a priest too, but you're just a cap only soul recruit. Otherwise, we have a cap only soul recruit priest and just a priest. So we are not particularly blessed with high priest power. Our Dominion has a special effect. All commanders, and this includes all commanders, so if you get them from other sources, they should have this ability too, can use dark vessels to cross the ocean between two provinces of the Pretender's Dominion. So this essentially gives you a special kind of sailing that you can go point to point as long as both of them are inside your Dominion. Extremely powerful, but also a little bit fragile. For scales and blesses, we get a productivity limit of +1 and a magic limit of +1. We do standard forts, and we start with a fortified city rather than a castle. Looking at sites, we have the Orichalcum Palace. This gives us our cap-only units, in addition to an air gem and a glamour gem. We have Black Corkia. This gives us a water gem and an earth gem. And we have the Gold Apple Tree. Gives us a fire gem. And people who are here age slowly by 50%, and it decreases our unrest by 5. All really nice things. As mentioned previously, if you start on an island, or I believe a peninsula with a single land connection, you also get an Orichalcum mine. This gives out 200 gold per turn. It is a mine, and produces 150 resources. This is a mine. I bring that up specifically because if you do Riches from Beneath, being a mine, you get extra bonuses. You also can use Cave Kobolds here because it is a mine. So two powerful things that you might want to do and get that. In addition, I'm going to show it off here before I forget. This is the unit that you get. I don't think it varies. I think this is what you get every spring. So we get in a Locos. This is the commander from the early age Makone. He still has his magic spear and his magic equipment. All really nice. He is Formation Fighter 2, so you can group them up a little easier. And because we are Phaeacia, he has our Dark Vessels ability. We also get some, what are you, Gigantes. I guess they're not called Legionnaires or anything. Length 4 spears, non-magical, wearing typical hoplite gear. Pretty good, 17 protection, decent magic resist, decent morale. They are formation fighters. So unfortunately, this is only going to be like 3 squares worth of giants, or maybe 4. But I mean, they're cool. They're pretty easy to point buff. We have good point buffs. They're fine. It's flavorful. I don't know exactly how powerful that would be, but like I said, they're useful. They're cool. I like them quite a bit. Units and sacreds. We have a small roster here of moving between pretty good and pretty dubious use. Starting with our humans, we have the Phaeacian Militia. These are garbage. They are humans with 5 protection. They have a leather cuirass, a leather cap and a shield, and a normal spear. They're militia, so they have 8 morale. They are dirt cheap. Don't see you really using these. Next up, we have Phaeacian Archers. Again, unfortunately, we're in the Middle Age, and a short bow is not really going to cut it. We do have good air magic access, so we can buff them a little bit. They're relatively cheap, 10, 7, 11. Bad morale, though, like militia bad morale. I don't like these guys very much. I don't think I would get them. If you can luck into some crossbows like I did in this game here, I would much, much, much prefer using some crossbows over these guys. Next up, we have the Phaeacian Light Infantry. This at least has normal morale at 10, as a spear and a javelin. Unfortunately, we're down to the linen cuirass. I don't like these guys. They're dirt cheap. Beyond that, they don't do much. 10 attack with 13 piercing damage is going to struggle in middle age. That is like regular troop armor. That's not even like good amounts of damage. And they're below on protection. I don't like these guys. Next up, we have the Phaeacian Infantry. Short sword wielding, scale mail cuirass. Still pretty cheap, 10, 14, 11. We have the same morale at 10. Otherwise, human stats essentially. Again, I don't like these guys. They're just, at least now we're up to 15 damage with an 11 attack. We can at least hit things and maybe damage them, but not particularly well. I'm not a big fan of these guys either. Next, we have the Phaeacian Heavy Infantry. At least now we're up to 15 protection, so now we're at least into a middle-age troop. We're wearing heavier gear. Our defense is okay. We're still doing a short sword, though, even if we're a little bit better at it. I don't like these guys. I don't tend to get them either. All right, finally, some decent troops. I'm going to start with this guy, Colossi Light Infantry. These guys are very efficient for what they do. This is what I usually expand with 20 gold, 11 resources, 13 recruitment points. What do you get? Well, we have a Colossi chassis instead of a human chassis, 20 HP, 14 strength, 11 attack skill. He's wielding a length 3 spear, so 11 attack, but because of our much better strength, we have 17 piercing damage. That at least can fight middle-aged things. We also have a javelin. While we're not particularly great at it, our natural precision is 11. So we're actually a little better than most people who use javelins. Because we're so strong, we also have range 14, and 16 piercing damage is all right. We are unfortunately wearing relatively light gear, so we end up with 8 body protection and 14 on the head, but we do have a decent shield, not a buckler. I like these guys a lot. You can mass these up pretty well because of our resource bonus in our capital. They expand all right. They are not going to be lossless expansion, but they also tend to take people with them when they go. Map move of 18 is pretty nice. These guys are just really good. Low encumbrance, so they can, if they're in grindy combat, they actually can stay in it pretty effectively. I tend to like to hold and fire with them because we have the extra range on the javelins. You usually can get 2 shots off with most of your troops. I like them a lot. If I can't get them, or I'm somewhere where I don't need huge numbers, the Colossi Heavy Infantry are fine. Again, we're using the Colossi chassis with the 20 HP and 14 strength and 11 attack skill. So giving him a short sword actually ends up giving you 12 attack. That's pretty good. Piercing, slashing, 19 damage. That's good. That's enough to fight heavy infantry. And we moved up to a Hoplon shield, which is very, very nice. So 16 protection's pretty good. I like these guys. Unfortunately, they're 34 resources each. So it's pretty hard to mass these guys in any large numbers, but they do just fine if you do. Do note they are size 4, so just like the light ones, you're only getting 2 of these per square, so attack density is going to be a problem. Finally, we have our cap-only Sacred, the Orichalcum Guard. These guys are all right. They're very pricey. 40 gold, 47 resources, 27 recruitment points. But you get full magic gear. Orichalcum swords are nice. They are a short sword, but magical. So 13 attack, 22 magic damage, and we're wearing magical gear. 15 on the body is pretty nice, and we're using a Orichalcum Hoplon for 22, so good protection there. They are sacred, and they have bodyguard too. Overall, I don't think you want like a Hellbless or anything for these guys, but you probably also won't be disappointed with their performance. I tend to get them as like 1 or 2 for bodyguards for expensive people, and maybe if you can save up enough of them, they make a nice little like core to your line as just being really, really solid troops. In addition, the utility of a recruitable magic weapon troop is very, very good. In every stream, people ask me why I haven't taken magic weapons, and I always regret that I didn't, but I also don't want to just take magic weapon bless every single time. It's a lot harder to use now that it is an incarnate bless than it used to be. So, very good troop. I like him a lot. They look cool. I like Colossi a lot. Heroes, Commanders, and Prophet. For our heroes, we have 2, and they're both really good. We have Agilide, probably saying that horrifically wrong. She is a Naiad, comes in with 3 water, 3 nature. That is the best nature we have by far. We don't have native nature. That's very valuable. Nature 3 is pretty decent. She's amphibious. She has a really high awe, cold resist, poison resist. She's stealthy. She has recuperation for herself, and she is a disease healer. She also has water breathing. Note, we don't really have an easy native way to get underwater, so it makes us very nervous that an underwater nation might just roll up and be sitting off our cap. That is very not good. However, she has homesickness 10, so every turn she's away, she's going to lose HP. So you're generally going to be stuck in your capital, but it's nice to have a disease healer, if nothing else, and she could summon some stuff in here. I mean, this is native water trolls or troll king court, and the nature also with trolls or crafting items, supply items. Lots of good stuff to do here. Second, we have the Phaeacian Princess. An interesting one here. 2 air, 1 water, 1 astral, 1 glamour, priest level 1 sacred. She is stealthy 65, she can sail, and she is a spy. if I got her, I don't know what I'd do with her. She's not like rare on the magic pathing. This is fine, but we have all this stuff. The spy can be pretty valuable. Maybe just have her do a world tour and check out all the thrones so you can do throne point counting. I'd really feel bad if I lost her like on an enemy capital or something. She has no upkeep, so even just as a cheap researcher, she's fine. She's usable. Spy's interesting. We don't have spies otherwise. Pretty cool there. Moving up to our regular commanders, we have a Phaeacian scout. Now, the important thing to note here, he's a little more pricey than normal because he has sailing. Note he has normal sailing, not black ships. This is important. We'll talk about that, I think, when we get to our first black ship unit. But this allows us to sail wherever we can reach. And yeah, map move of 16 is fine. Water areas tend to not be too bad on movement points. So you can move around pretty decently. Other than that, not too much to say about him, other than he's not wearing armor at all. He just has a cap for some reason. So there you go. Next up, we have a Phaeacian captain. This is our starting commander unit. Unfortunately, we have much, much better. He does have sailing, so he can move around a little bit, move some people with him. Note that sailing cannot be larger than the unit that is sailing, I believe. So he can only move humans around is the long short of that. And that's unfortunate because we don't want to recruit our humans. We don't like them. We'd rather have Colossi. Beyond that, competent. He's okay. He's equipped decently. He's fine. Next up, we have the Phaeacian priest. Now, these guys are actually more important than they may look otherwise. They're a priest level 1. They are sacred. They're a human. They essentially look like a indie human priest, but more expensive. However, what you're paying for is sailing. This is very important because you need to have your dominion on the 2 ends that you want to sail between with dark fleets. And it can take a really, really, really long time for your dominion to get out of the water and onto land, especially if there's some other nations around. You need to get over there and probably build a temple on the shore so that you can guarantee that you can ferry troops back and forth. Beyond that, he's going to build some temples. That's about it. He doesn't have tons of use, unfortunately. If you are using sacreds, he may be who has to bless them, I will mention. And that sucks because he has no protection. He's a weak human. He doesn't even have human HP. So he tends to die a lot. Next up, we have the Mage Pilot. This is a research option that we have. 9 research for 88 gold a year is right at that efficiency border. He has Air 1, Water 1. Not particularly useful paths, particularly, especially we have other options that are going to be better, but it's also not the worst thing ever. In a super pinch, you could summon storm power, and then they could lightning in a storm. They also have regular sailing, so they can get somewhere to build you a lab if need be. Next up, we have the Colossi Weaver. Interesting unit here. Note that this is not cap only. It's 175 gold, not slow to recruit. We're guaranteed an air and an astral, and we get 1 random of air, water, earth, astral, or glamour. We have 140 upkeep for only 11 research, so we're not the most efficient. And we have a forge bonus of 1. So this reduces the cost of forging things. If you were to get her a hammer, that means we'd have forge bonus 3, so we could forge cost 5 items for only 2 gems. That's really, really powerful. Think about owl quills, for example, or just some pieces, like random pieces of gear that cost 5 points. Very, very nice to have. If nothing else, owl quills is definitely an option here. Probably the strongest one, although maybe some armor things or whatever. You're definitely going to want a few of these to do a little bit of crafting and maybe get out and site search, just depending on what else you're recruiting. We'd like to have gem income from all of these things. Next up, we have the Colossi Storm Captain. I love these guys. Not a cap only, not slow to recruit. 245 gold is pricey, but you get what you pay for. 34 resources. He is a non-sacred Colossi, size 4. Good attack skill, good HP, good strength. He has 2 air and a water as pathing. Anyone who's done some thugging or anything like that is immediately like, ooh. So this is personal mist form and quickness right off the bat. Maybe also liquid body could be an option. We could put a cold aura on him. We can cloud trapeze him. He can cast Shocking Grasp. He could cast Lightning Bolt. He could cast Lightning Orb. Lots of good magic here. And you can do advance and cast spells relatively safely. He has a hop on shield. He has armor. His encumbrance for spellcast is actually not too bad. 8 being a fully armored dude is not too bad. So for me, in the early game, I'm usually putting up Air Shield, and then as soon as I get it, switching that over to Personal Misform. And then they could do True Shot and buff archers or javelin throwers. They could give you air shields. They can move up and do lightning damage or wind spells. All really nice things to do. They also have Sailing, which is really handy for moving troops around, and at size 4, they can move everyone around. Leadership 100, so we're getting full squads. Very nice unit here. His base gear is okay. If I was going to try to do some light army thugging, I would probably give him something else here. No, we can also buff self lightning resist, so lightning whip, lightning trident could be options down here. Beyond that, anything that does AoE would be fine. Next up, we have the Prince Consort. This is a slow to recruit cap only mage. You're probably going to want to recruit these until you at least get a Air 4. They start as Air 3, Water 2, Priest 1, and a random 110 of Air, Water, Earth, and Glamour. So an Air 4 is important because that allows you to make the Air boosters. So very nice that we can natively get that. And that means we don't have to create a pretender to make Air boosters. We are definitely an Air Magic Nation, and Air Magic Nations want 2 things, Air boosters and Storm. And he's going to be able to help you with both of those things. Note, he can Storm right out of the box quite easily with Air 3. So that is really nice if you're in a pinch in the early game. He has some shock resistance, 17 research, however, 194 per year. You'll probably have a few of these. They're going to go out and do some site searching, at least probably one of them. For these other ones, I'd prefer to send cheaper people, but if he gets one of those, that's fine too. Next up, we have the Colossi Queen. Once you've got your Air 4 guy, you're probably going to switch over to recruiting these as your cap-only slow to recruit. 515 gold is expensive, but slow to recruit. Comparing here, 485, it's not that much more expensive. 2 air, 2 water, guaranteed an astral and a glamour, priest level 2, and 100% of air, water, astral, and glamour. What this means is she can jump into communions guaranteed with our weavers. Note that we have guaranteed astral and air, so she's going to be a very good air caster. We could go ahead and communion up to storms and then thunderstrike spam or wrathful skies or whatever else we want to do there. In addition, remember that they moved Wailing Winds over to air glamour, so this is somebody who can do Wailing Winds for you. Oftentimes, Wailing Winds is a win condition for battles by itself. So, yeah, pretty easy. And it's easy for her to do, too. Like, that is not very far outside of her skill. So, a small communion, and we will already be there. In addition, remember, if you communion up, you can raise your priest level, which will allow us to do battlefield blessings if we need to. Probably not. We don't have tons of sacreds, but it's handy when you need it. Can be pretty nice. For a researcher, 206 gold for 19, actually kind of on the cusp of it, just below, so that's not too bad. You're probably spamming these as soon as you possibly can. Finally, we have Wind Caller. This is a recruit in any coastal fort. Outside of your capital, for main mages, so not our Colossi Storm guys, but for a main battle mage, this is it. He's slow to recruit, which is a little unfortunate, but he's not bad. 240 gold isn't really breaking the bank. He's a human, and do note he comes in kind of old. He's 66 out of 75. With some random chance here, he could come in at, if you're really unlucky, as old age. Just FYI. Not sacred, does have sailing. He has air mage 2 and water 1 guaranteed, and a random of air or water or astral. So you could get air 3s, you could get water 2s, or you could get the astral on here. All of those are useful. If nothing else, they can go into combat and do air stuff. They also can do water stuff okay. If you were going to have to cast some cold spells, this is the guy I'd probably want to be doing it, rather than my more expensive mages. once you can afford it, I think you want to get these guys in your coastal forts, and they will make up the bulk of your combat magic outside of your communion. Who would I make my profit? I think you're basically guaranteed to want a Colossi Storm Captain. They're well equipped. They're not going to particularly die. They have sailing. You can protect him easily, so he could do his Big Bless. He could do like a Sermon of Courage, and then he could Mistform or Air Shield himself and Liquid Body. So he's very survivable. Personal quickness and personal flight also lets him run away if you're losing a fight pretty effectively. And I believe flying units have a better chance of retreating safely. Fact check me on that in the comments if you know differently. But that makes your profit a little less likely to die on a retreat or something like that. Overall, pretty nice. All right, let's take a look at the black vessels before we move on here. We'll look at it here. So it doesn't show it on the unit card, but once you recruit them, everyone will have it. So all those guys, let me find an indie commander. I know I've got one somewhere. Here we go. So here's a Machakan Lion Tribe Witch Doctor. See how he's got Dark Vessel. So anybody we recruit will get it. I guess we could have looked at him, doesn't matter who. When this commander approaches the coast, dark vessels will soon appear ready to transport him and his men. The dark vessels only exist inside friendly dominion, and both coasts on the journey must be inside friendly dominion. The dark vessels have no limit on how many or how large the people that board them can be. In the early game here, I actually really struggled. I expanded past my dominion, and my dominion refused to move out of the water for the longest time. So I couldn't get people across the ocean as soon as I should have. What you need to do probably is get a couple early priests and have them get across and build some temples. So I've kind of remedied that now. My profit's over here. Ironically enough, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, just note that that can be relatively tricky. So if I was like in the real middle of the ocean here, it would really suck. You'd have to be careful who you're recruiting to make sure you have sailing to be able to land and start actually taking some territory. Could be rather awkward. National items and spells. As for national items, we have 3 national items. First up in miscellaneous at construction 5, we have the Windcatcher Sail. This is a item that will allow you to have the sailing. Commander equipped with a Windcatcher Sail can travel 1 province further than normal with the sailing ability. Could be really good. That's exceedingly map dependent. It can be nice, like if you're playing with like multiplayer and people really know the game and they know how far you can sail. This could allow you to surprise them. Beyond that, though, I'm just not really seeing it. Next up over here, at construction 3 and 7, we have the garments. We have purple silk garment. This gives us 2 HP, a magic resist, 2 defense, and twist fate. You need to be an astral 1, water 1 to be able to craft it, and it costs 3 astral and 2 water. Do note that if you were able to do this with one of your crafters, it'll be 2 and 1 for the cost, and even cheaper with the hammer. It's okay. I mean, it's better than nothing if you want to make some armor for your mages. Some extra HP is never bad, and our giants are not going to get 1 hit, so that's fine. Twist Fate also would be able to get rid of something that hits you the first time. And at 7, we have Silver Silk Garments. 2 HP, 2 magic resist, gives you Reinvigoration 2 and Twist Fate. All for the low price of Astral level 1 for 3 Astral Pearls and Air level 1 for 2. Again, really, really cheap. If you did go up to Construction 7, I would definitely put this on as many mages as I possibly could. Reinvigoration 2 is really nice. You could have that, and you could wear a belt, and you'd already be rocking 4 Reinvigoration. That's pretty darn nice for a nation that likes to spam something like Thunder Strikes or Lightning Bolts. Very, very good there. Pretty nice. For magic, we actually have a decent amount of national spells, although they're not really stuff that's too amazing. So starting us off in enchant, at enchant 6, we have Sow Dragon Teeth. A spell that we've seen a lot. I don't think I've actually ever gotten it off on screen. 6 enchantment's hard to do if you're not a nation that has something you want here. Now, we kind of are. There's some stuff in enchant we'd like. If you get here and you have somebody who is Earth 2, so that could be a little iffy with our pathing. I think Earth 1's generally as high as we're going to get, so you'd have to do some work for this. But for a single Earth gem, you can throw out 10 effects, and they summon in a pretty nice little unit here. Let's actually look at, because he is that good. It is Sparte. They are not actually undead despite what they sound like here. They come in with the magic gear, and they are formation fighters. So if you could get, let's say, 3 or 4 Earth 2 guys, just to spam a couple of these out at the beginning of combat, this is a really nice blocking unit. However, are you going to have an Earth 2? Are you going to be up to enchant 6? I don't know. That's relatively dubious. Beyond that, we have a bunch in Conjuration and a couple in Construction. Let's actually look at the Construction ones. We have the Dogs of Gold and Silver. We have Forge Brass Bowl, and we have Craft Calcadone. All things we've looked at before on kind of the Greeky nations. The dogs here, Kuon Agirios and Kuon Kairisos. Forgive me, my Greek audience. They're okay. You only get 2 of them. They're really high. They have patrol bonuses. They have bodyguard. They are mindless. I don't know. I don't see much value in them. They're okay though. They're flavorful. We have the Calcadrone. This is the golden statue that can enter into communions. Do note though that they are not singers or anything, and they don't have any magic paths. They tend to get blown out on fatigue really badly. I don't know if I would often, if ever, get these. They are statues, and they are kind of hard to destroy. Sometimes that has value in and of itself. They have resist to all physical damage, and resist to all elemental damage, and poison. So like 5 of these just to exist in the doorway of a fort might be enough to buy you the time for an HP route on the enemy. That would be kind of funny. Beyond that, though, they have no attacks and no armor, so kind of whatever. The Kokothoros is a very cool unit. Can be kind of a surprise for an enemy that's not expecting a fire-breathing trampler with 25 protection. Do note you could point buff him up and get that a bit higher. He has Heat 3 aura, he tramples, he's mindless, resist all physical and all things again. Can be quite a little surprise weapon. Although, again, are you ever going to get up to Construction 6 and have Earth 2, Astral 2? I don't know. They are pretty cheap, though. 5 gems is not too bad to be able to do that. That is pretty economical, I would say, on that one. All right, let's get into some more meat here. In Conjuration, we have Pride of Lions, because of course we do. You get 15 plus. Do note we don't really have native nature. If you get nature, I don't know if this is what you're spending it on, but it exists. At 5, we have Summon Hound of Twilight. At 6, we have Hesperides. These are very good units. We'll look at them here in a second. But do note, they're Fire 3, Astral 1. We don't have native fire anymore. Our fire was removed and we got Glamour. These are good enough that you might consider creating your pretender god to be able to summon them in. They're that good. Also, we can call Ladon. This is like a dragon thing that guards the golden apples. It's a unique summon, meaning that only one can exist, and if he dies, he dies. That was a pretty big nerf. He's pretty cool too. We'll look at him here in a second. I believe the Hesperides can summon them in if you go that route, so you don't necessarily have to create for this. We have Bind Carries at 6, and let's take a look at those. Our lions are not shown here, but they're the standard lion chassis. They do have Dark Vision, I believe, and 2 attacks is what it is on those. Hound of Twilight. I like these guys a lot, actually, especially if you can give them some point bluffing. They would absolutely love Mistform or Ethereal or some more protection or all 3. They have decent attacks, and the Ghost Rending attacks have Stop the Dead, which is a paralyze that is pretty brutal. And they are magic weapons that hit pretty hard. So he has 3 different attacks. Poison on the tail attack, and the Stop the Dead on the Ghost Rending bites. Do note he also has Fear. He's poison resistant, high patrol bonus, Spirit Sight, and is unsurroundable. These guys are really good if you can get them out. Lots of targets in middle age for them that they're also pretty good for. The Hesperide here, very, very nice. If designing a pretender to do this might be worthwhile. She can get the land and summon in for you. By herself, she's already a pretty good mage, and at 35 fire gems, quite the steal. She has recuperation for herself and a disease healer 3, high supply bonus. She has inspirational. She reduces unrest. That's pretty handy sometimes. Fire resistance, has high awe. She's tied for highest priest level at 2. This would allow you to do fire arrows, poison arrows. Astral 3 lets you do some nice tricky stuff. She's by far our highest astral that we can do. Remember, we have communions that we could support her with. So very, very powerful here. I think these are very strong contenders for designing your bless around. Next, we have the Drakon Hesperios. He's cool. I don't have too much to say about him here. You can basically summon in a monster chassis that you can fight with. Do note he has no magic paths and limited slots, but 20% regen, fear of 10, poison resistance 15. He's cold-blooded, he can swim. He has swamp survival, gluttony, and he's unsurroundable. I like this guy a lot. If you are going to use him, I would try to make sure I'm buffing him. Again, Mist Form, Body Ethereal, some protection, maybe higher regen if you can get the nature magic around. He is pretty cool. Very usable. Not much to say about that. Cares are interesting. You do need Death 2 to do these. Even not starting with Death, though, it's not uncommon. We could find some Death somewhere and then kill Ermor and then empower something. They have Ghost Running Claws similar to the doggos we looked at. They are flying. Everyone always talks about if you awaken them as commanders, then they have blood magic, so you can use them to get blood economy. I've literally never bothered to do that, but people always talk about it if you don't mention it. So there you go, care enjoyers. That one's for you. Overall, pretty good stuff. Dubious use on some of them. Pretty good, but hard to do on others. They're okay. They're all right. I think we are more of a evocation, alteration, enchant nation than we are a conjuration nation, however. Speaking of that, let's take a look at magic. I think some big goals for us are going to be Storm, Summon Storm Power, Mist Form, especially the AoE ones. Our giant chassis are pretty good, but we have low attack density, and we have a lot of incoming attacks spread only 2 ways. So we would absolutely love to get Army of Mist or smaller variants therein. Personal Mist Form at least for our guys. Quickness is nice. Quicken Self is nice for our thuggy guys. We could do freeze type stuff. We do have some glamour, so we might be able to do some glamour point buffing. Could be pretty nice. If we break into the nature, swarm or bark skin type things would be pretty useful for us. In evocation, I do think that we are looking at Lightning Bolt and Thunderstorm as our big ones. However, Orb Lightning can be pretty devastating. Also, where are you? Shockwave. Shockwave's one you don't see too often. It's only range 2, but it's got area of effect 6. It's not very fatiguing, and it's got decent damage. You'd be surprised how big area of effect 6 is. So this is probably going to be your Colossi Stormcallers, and they're going to be on advance and cast spells. And if they don't feel like they're going to do too much friendly fire, they will do this. So if you were to give your Sacreds some lightning resist and have those be kind of the center of your formation, you could have these guys behind casting this as a nice early area of effect spell that is pretty devastating. Do note it's armor negating damage, which is very nice for heavily armored troops that think they're going to be safe. Beyond that, we also have illusion stuff from Glamour. I think the big one here is going to be at 5, Illusionary Army. If you're going to communion up, we could do this pretty easily. 20 plus effects are pretty nice. And if they don't have magic weapons, these guys are a pain in the butt to clear out. Beyond that, we also have, where are you, my Wailing Winds? Wailing Winds at 7. So Glamour 4 is going to take some oomph to do. If you can get to Glamour 3, we can pay 1 gem to go up to 4 and 2 gems for the price and cast it. That would totally be worthwhile. This is like a game-winning, or excuse me, it might be game-winning, a battle-winning spell for sure. Getting this up and running. So, like, let's say you combine this with Army of Mist and just wait the enemy out for them to retreat. Very, very strong there. Other things in here, Project Self can be kind of interesting if you build your Pretender to use that. Do note, beyond Pretenders, though, we're only really sitting at like 1 or 2 Glamour, so a lot of these other ones are going to be off limits to us. In Enchantment, there's quite a bit here that we would like. The Personal Flight is very useful. True Shot and its larger varieties. Protection from Lightning and its varieties. Arrow of the West Wind is a nice attack spell that isn't a elemental damage type. Cloud Trapeze allows us to move our mages around for surprises, possibly. Levitate Soldiers, in the right circumstances, this is very, very good. Allows you to avoid Earth Grip, Earthquakes. I think it allows you to ignore Quagmire or Swamp penalties, things like that. Anything that requires you to be on the ground, you can just avoid. Can be very powerful there. I'm looking for Trade Wind, actually could be really good. Coastal income is increased by 25%. Remember, in our coastal castles, we get increased income. This would just raise that even further. And we can natively pull in a recruit with a little bit of luck that can natively cast this. I think this is well worth doing if you can get it up. Do note that it is, I think it's 1 month plus 1 month for every gem spent, but I totally would do that trade. Definitely, definitely. It is so good. If we go up to 6, we also get Wind Guide. Wind Guide gives you battlefield-wide precision +2. That's nice for our javelins that we might be throwing, in addition to any ranged troops that we've managed to pick up, especially crossbows if we can find them. But it also has the precision penalty and negates the 50% firing chance from Storm. So this makes it so we can fire in storms essentially at regular ability, whereas we can shut down other people's crossbows with a storm. Can be very, very nice there. You'll definitely win archery duels inside of that. In construction, other things you might want to think about: Alquills, the Glamour booster, the Air boosters. The Glamour research item is pretty nice, but remember, you have to be a Glamour mage to be able to use it. Can be pretty handy, though, if you can get there. Beyond that, Rings of Water Breathing or other water breathing items to get underwater. We can get Water 3 recruits, which mean we can summon Bishop Fish, which does give us a Holy 3. And a Bishop Fish with a Shambler skin or a Fish Amulet and a Magic Carpet can fly around and do throne claims for you. That's a lot of investment, but it's all things we can afford, right? Like, that's a few air gems, a few water gems. That's fine. We have income in both of those, and we will probably site search out a decent amount more. Okay, let's bring it all together. So I rolled up a couple random maps. I finally got one that had some islands on it. Yay. I was very happy about that. One of the things I noted, as mentioned, I really am struggling to get my Dominion out of the water and onto land. So I lucked out. Unfortunately for Mikland, I landed here and I bounced their army. So I immediately just went to Mikland, and everything I produced for my first 6 months ran over to Mikland, and I just sieged them down in the first year. They just got totally rushed. They're very salty at the moment. Beyond that, you could see my expansion here. I went from island to island. I started a very early second castle. Then I went here and I bumped into Mikland and fought them. While I was doing that, once I was sure I had enough people over here, I had an expansion party that sailed over here, and they went over here. I've got an easy throne. I've kind of cordoned off Asphodel. I had another one that went here and starting over here. I had one that had to jump to here, and then I was able to sail to here, and then I was doing this. So this gives you a ton of reach. And remember, even if I don't have the fort, which I do now, I can get my income from coastal provinces. Like if I captured this, I would get the money from that because I can trace a coastal. It doesn't matter if you don't own the water beneath it. You just have to be able to sail. That's really powerful on nations who have that and sailing. Our coastal fort income bonus. We look here, 320 income from this place, and it literally has no surroundings. It's just from here. Our capital, 897 income. Now, I am a scales build here, but part of that's the Oricolcum mine, and part of it's just the rich island that you start on. Very, very nice there. So we have a lot of income and a lot of free resources in our capital that make him a lot stronger than an island normally would be. That's kind of a death sentence for any other nation. Nations like Ys struggle with their start position because they're often a underwater coast and they get nothing from the land, so they struggle on getting enough resources to get out their good stuff. Can really hurt them quite badly. The sailing is also super useful. Like right here, this was not frozen, and you can see there's no bridge here. So to go from here to here, normally I couldn't do that unless I could swim, but I can do that because I just sail. I sail out here and then I land here. So very, very nice to be able to jump rivers or things like that. Or if there was just a province with something that you couldn't fight, like let's say I was expanding here. Oh, I don't want to attack him. Oh, I'll just sail around him. Very, very nice to have that extra layer of map move. Coastal forts being very important. I think you're definitely going to want to focus on that. And as you get up to castle, you get that extra income. It is just so powerful. Like, I am in turn 19 and I'm making over 4,000 gold. And note, this is not a castle, this is not a castle, this is not a castle, and I'm building one here. So that is going to skyrocket even further. And in our non-cap places, we can still get wind callers. They are slow to recruit, but if every one of those forts I have is recruiting these guys, that's a very strong mage base. And they can sail, so I can get them, I can move them around to where the fight's going to be relatively easily. And if I can't sail there, I could cloud trapeze there. So a surprisingly powerful mage in the wind caller that you may not otherwise feel like it's going to do a lot for you. Okay, let's go look at some pretender design. Phaeacia is a Greek nation, and the Greek nations are one of the higher ones for chassis that you can possibly get. For unique chassis, we don't get tons. We do get the Telkine God King. So this would be one option if you want to have somebody who can expand underwater. I think you would try to build one of these guys really cheap. We need to make sure we have at least some here. We're going to need some here. What are we going to do? We need to be able to self-buff. So this is personal misform, some protection, maybe liquid body, quicken self. Something like that. We can go up to 3 in one of these. I would probably do here. And his main idea is he's going to go underwater, self-buff himself, and then just stay alive while his foul vapors kills everybody. So do not do a turn 1 expand with him. He definitely needs at least personal misform. Ideally, I think I would do like summon earth power, personal iron skin, personal mistform, liquid body, maybe quicken self would be my script. Something like that. This is not good scales. I do think we are a scales nation, and that gives us 4 bless points. With 4 bless points, I'm probably just gonna go double shock resist. I think that's what I do for him. Note, he is awake, so the whole goal here is fast research, go take some water around your capital. Protects you a little bit from underwater nations, being able to be right next to your capital. If they get on your capital and then they preach away your dominion, you might not be able to sail back if you're counting on your dark vessels. So that is a big, big danger. If we didn't like him, other things to consider, the Earth Serpent can do water expansion, but he's not great at it. I think for him, you're probably looking at a hard skin. What do we need? Boop. Boop. Oh, that's that makes me nervous. Yeah, I think it'd have to be something like this. So we're hard skin and we have 2 nature, so we can do personal regen. For him, I would research until you have personal regen, and that's probably good enough to go with hard skin and his extra earth magic. He's going to be sitting at like 27, 28 protection. With the personal regen, he'd be relatively safe. He'd have fear. He is amphibious, so he can get underwater, and he has both recuperation and that earth magic will give him resistance to afflictions. So he can do that. Another option to get underwater. I did play a very, very, I think it was this build or something very close in Dom 5 when I played Phaeacia, and I used him to take the water. It was very strong, but I felt it later in the game when I just didn't have any scales. And if you're going to go with something like this, I don't like doing dormant. a year in, if there is anybody else who can start with the ability to get underwater, they've probably already come to your capital. I don't think that's worthwhile. I think at that point you might as well just get somebody who could summon something in to fight underwater for you. Beyond that, none of these other chassis are unique. I don't think we have kind of the Egyptian pantheon, we have the Greek pantheon, we have a kind of the Greek Egyptian statues and the mobiles. We do have the monument. The monument's interesting in that it's like the monolith. It's very, very hard to kill. Just comes in with 30 protection. So you can probably get that up to 33, 34 with no effort. You're going to want enough astral magic that they can't magic duel you. Do note, though, unteleportable. So you're not going anywhere with this guy. If I was going to do a build like this, something like this-ish, maybe. We could go awake. We could go dormant. Awake would give us a lot of protection. Astral shield and summon earth power and personal iron skin and then earthquakes. You could ethereal yourself too, and then earthquake keep you pretty protected. Very, very hard to get rid of something like this patrolling its capital. It would like... It's an 8 spellcaster. It would probably like some better scales here, which we actually can afford on this nation. Something like that. I think in this case, though, I think I'd probably go for dormant, which would allow you to get a lot more scales. Ooh, design 0. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I like the extra magic here because we do have some cheap, weak researchers that we can buff up with owl quills. This makes them much, much, much more efficient. I think this is very playable. This is also because we could do Riches from Beneath and Earthblood Deepwell, and we can do Astral Siphon and other astral magic. So it has some global options here. In addition, we could summon in Troll King Court. That could be pretty useful there. Beyond him, I like the Great Archon. I don't know if he's particularly great, if I'm being honest. Titan of War, I'm looking here to see if I have a Glamour Astral chassis, and I don't think we do. That would be nice for a cheapy project self. We would need somebody who can fight with it, though. You're going to be too expensive because new paths are going to cost 60, so that's not going to work there. If we drop down here, I don't think any of these guys are going to work for it. Yeah, unfortunate. I don't think we have a chassis that really can do the project self Titan fighter. Down here, we have the gray one. That is a Trinity. If you just want pure research, that's a very, very good option. We do have the Great Sage. He would give you Inspiring Researcher. Could be pretty powerful, and he could easily sail to another non-cap place where you're going to just recruit tons and tons of researchers. That could be pretty nice. Let's take a look at what I actually built and was testing. This is going to be Daughter of Dreams. This is a great enchantress. She is imprisoned, and she went pretty cheap. She is larger and double shock resistance. This is essentially to make our sacreds just big blockers, and we'll have a blob of them in the middle that we can fire lightning towards and not have to worry too much about. In addition, they could bodyguard our commanders, and our commanders could self-buff them and themselves, and then fly to an attack rear and have a pretty nasty little group that can get into the mages or something. She also gives me some glamour gem income. We could do some summon cave kobolds when she comes in. We also could do water kobolds if we needed it, although we really don't need water kobolds. She's within striking distance of Riches from Beneath. She also allows me to summon in the national summons, although admittedly, again, imprisoned. Scales-wise, very, very nice. I would like maybe a little bit more Dominion, but that can be a double-edged sword, because let's say I went 7 Dominion. Sometimes your Dominion just insists on filling up the candles before it spreads. You could end up in a situation where your capital just eats up your first, 5 or 6 turns, and you don't spread any candles. That could be pretty rough if that happens. Other than that, we have near perfect scales, I would say. Very high magic, very high production, which we could definitely spend, by the way, and ditto with the recruitment points. So I feel like this is all right. Maybe trading a little of this around, maybe drop like a magic for some growth would be good, but our income is so stupid good from those coastal forts. I don't really think that we need the growth. We're also not going to do any blood hunting. Little bit of fortune just to try to make it so we don't get bad events and we can get some free gems or free labs. That would be pretty handy. We are a nation that likes to craft and use gems, so anything we could get that will help that. Blessing wise, I do think you could switch this up. You could drop a shock resistance or even both, and I would pick up probably some heroism. Do note though, our main researchers are not sacred, so they're not going to be able to use heroism to boost their research. It would be relatively nice though for our sacreds if we care about our sacreds. This, like I said, is more of just a blocker build. Also makes our mages pretty safe if we want to do like Wrathful Skies plays. All right, so in conclusion, Middle-Age Phaeacia is a really cool nation. We have a neat little island thing. We have cool colossi that are really good, actually. We're kind of one of the smaller giant races, but we're still around. We get some Makone troops that could be kind of cool. The sailing thing is really neat. They're good at magic casting, both with evocations and with alterations buffing themselves. Pretty nice. If you can find yourself some heavy cav and find yourself some crossbows, we're golden. We're ready for this middle age. Pretty fun. Pretty darn fun. As usual, if you have your own blesses that you really like, or what I'd like to see is some builds for underwater expanders. I didn't really like any of the ones that I built. For me, they need to be awake and they need to be semi-relevant. They have to do something beyond just take the water, because at that point I might as well just wait and summon something in to try to do that later on. So if you could come up with something that does that, let me know in the comments below. Beyond that, I think this is going to be a really fun stream. It does have the potential to go sideways really fast, though. Like, we sail into an enemy capital and just die on turn 3. So, could be pretty rough, but I think it'll be fine. I've had pretty good luck in all my test games, but that all seems to fall apart as soon as we go on stream. I think streams might have a misfortune site that I don't know about. All right, if you enjoyed this one, don't forget to leave a like on the way out. If you are not already a subscriber, I hope this is the video that I've earned your subscription on. And if you'd like to go above and beyond, we have super chats if you'd like to join us on one of the live streams. Super thanks if you just want to leave a tip. And channel memberships if you'd like to see these videos usually about a week early. All right, builders, get out there and build yourself some dark vessels and let's sail to victory. I'll catch you on the stream.